So today we are going to talk about how to security harden your iPhone and ensure only those iPhones can log in into your company resources and access the data there. So for this, we are going to create a configuration policy, and you can find this in the Intune section and under devices. There are two items that configuration profile and compliance profile. I'm making a configuration profile. So there you can just name it as you wish. So there are a bunch of settings here that you can either turn on or turn off for yourself. Now bear in mind this is already a templated version under the restrictions template. So there are some settings that work for me, so you can either replicate them or you can have your own setting depending on how your organization is structured and what kind of access you want to provide for your devices. For me, I'm going to block the corporate documents, treat airdrop as an unmanaged destination. As you can see, there are a bunch of sections here as well. So you can pick what section you want, and then you can choose additionally what settings in there are useful for you. I'm gonna block Siri when the device is locked. Everything else here seems okay. Those are just warnings, so you may or may not have it. It's fine. These are all the inbuilt applications that you can block. Most of these inbuilt applications do not have any issues when it comes to security. Find My iPhone is one of the important features, so I would also not block it. And everything else like camera, iTunes, everything else is good and it's no issues from a security point of view. For cloud and storage, I'll force encrypted backups. Block managed tasks from storing data in iCloud. That one seems important. Now, for me, it I've seen that it is better if my organization users do not sync their photos with iCloud. So I'm gonna turn off that configuration as well. This is only for this demo point of view, but if you're, for example, using a personal phone, you can very well not block it because it's serving two purposes. This would cause issues with accessibility for your own users if they're using a BYOD. Next up, connected devices. You can actually work with how your Apple wristwatch or AirDrop is working with the iPhone users. For me, I've seen that Apple wristwatch detection is okay, but I don't want to necessarily block it. Block access to USB drive and files app. So I'm gonna go ahead and block that one as well. Now I don't like AirPrint at all. Like I don't like people printing from iPhone at all. So I'm gonna completely block AirPrint and all the configurations within AirPrint. AirDrop is also something I'll block. As you can see, the rest of the configurations are also good. I don't mind if my users are using these configurations, but for you, if you think make your organization better in terms of security, just go ahead and block it. For example, even NFC, if you want your users to not accidentally tap or make a transaction from a company organizational account wallet, you would probably go ahead and disable NFC there. But for me, it's okay. Now, in the general, there are a few configurations that are quite important. We'll go through these one by one. So blocking the diagnostic data may or may not have it. For me, I would prefer to have it. See screenshots and screen recording. That is actually a good one. I personally don't mind it because I'm not very intensive with data protection yet. So I will allow it, but probably you should block it. Untrusted TLS certificates, definitely go ahead and enable that one. Limit ad tracking, trusting new enterprise application authors, limit Apple personalized advertising. I would definitely want to block configuration profile changes, so that's a big yes there. Allow USB accessories while device is locked. That would be one of the configurations that you would want to implement. Block VPN creation. Now that one is important, especially if you have an organizational VPN. You would want to prefer only that configuration. Lock screen experience. Now, for keyword and dictionary, that section does not have a lot of security configurations, and so does kiosk. But lock screen experience might have a few. Block control access and lock screen. That one is important. Block notifications, center access, and lock screen. You may or may not have that, but I prefer to have that. Now, wallet notification lock screen. Now, this one I've just added it from my testing point of view so that I know when the configuration has kicked in, but you may not have that one. Now, probably you would have a pin, a six-digit pin or something on your iPhone, but when you do these configurations, it will force like a 12-digit password with alphanumeric values and special characters and everything, just like a normal password requirement when you log in into your Azure Active Directory. Password sharing, definitely block that one. Wouldn't want your users to be able to modify your Touch ID or fingerprint ID, so you could go ahead and block that as well. Now, just before we move on to other sections, there's a section called restricted apps where you can actually add the bundle ID of the app and restrict it for the users. Like if, for example, don't like Dropbox, you can actually go ahead and add bundle ID of Dropbox there. Voice dialing when device is locked is an OK feature, you may or may not have that one. So I'm gonna go ahead and save that one. Now over here you can add assignments of this configuration profile. For this I'm gonna skip this for now. I'm just gonna take it up in a second, but for now I'm gonna skip it. So under your devices configuration, you will see a second profile there. I've created the first one a while ago. It's a default one there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the hardening template that I've created, and under assignments here I will edit and add all devices, which I've already done. And now you can either add all users or add groups the way you want it. If you have a bigger organization, you can actually roll this out in steps, and then you can see if these configurations are working well for your organization or not. Now, as soon as you push this profile, you can see the screenshot where the passcode has expired and it's asking me the complicated password requirement. Now, under my phone and device configuration, you can see what configurations of the template have been applied to my iPhone. Now, the second thing that we'll be doing is a compliance profile. So, the general difference between a configuration profile and a compliance profile would be that configuration profile would be a necessary requirement, and the configuration will be applied to your device. But a compliance profile checks whether or not these configurations are there, and if not, it marks the device as non-compliant. Now, this is just an intermediary step because, for example, a non compliant device may not really be a showstopper for your organization unless you make some other additional configurations. For my compliance profile, for example, you can see that I've mandated 18.7.1 as my minimum update, and also people entering with a jailbroken device within my organization. So I've gone ahead and mandated minimum iOS requirement, and I've gone ahead to detect whether or not the device is jailbroken. Now under iOS devices, under my device, you will see that this device is marked as non-compliant. And the reason why it is marked is because the compliance configuration that I've configured earlier has has two things there which require further configuration from my side, after which the device will be marked as compliant. Now again, I can still access all the company resources even though my device is non-compliant, because nowhere in my organization I've mentioned that a non-compliant device can't do that. So the way you do this is through something called as conditional access policies. That is something that you can find under the Entra admin center. Over there, I've already created a conditional access policy, but for this demo, I'll create a new one and have the same configuration that I've had in the previous one. So I'm taking a test user there, and which means that this conditional access policy will only be applied to that user. Firstly, I'm going to name the policy as per whatever the naming convention I want. Then I can add a target. So basically, over here, you can select what targets you want, like Outlook or the whole office or any specific thing within Microsoft 365. Later on in the section, I'm gonna select the entire Office 365, and we'll get to that part in a second there. But selecting specific resources here, like you can actually see that this is also Azure and Microsoft 365. Access to both of these can be provided through conditional access policies. Now here you can mark conditions. So I'm going to cover a lot of these things when I discuss conditional policies in detail in the next video. But for now, the only thing that this conditional access policy is applicable to is iPhones. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply iOS as my device platform requirement. And then the next thing that I'm marking is a filter to check whether or not a device is compliant or not. Now, under grant, you can either block or grant access depending on whether or not you want to do that. I have marked it as block. I have marked it as blocked so that no one who has an iOS device and with a is compliant flag as false can access my exchange online. So this is very specific. The other way you can do this is through grant access, but where the device is marked as compliant. So both of these ways work. But I think it is better if, for example, we do the grant access with conditions like require devices to be marked as compliant and require Microsoft Entra hybrid joint device. Now, again, this is the same as telling conditional access policy that we need to use two filters. So I'm going to grant access only if my device is marked as compliant and my device is Entra hybrid joint. Now you can also force users to go through MFA when granting access to one of your resources, but we'll cover that in more detail in the later section. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the filter configuration because it's gonna become redundant. And I'm gonna apply this policy. So now I'm after a few minutes these conditional access policies kick in. So in my iPhone, when I check the device status, you can see that I need to update this device to mark it as compliant. Now just because I've added this conditional policy as well, I should not be able to log in using my credentials. So let's go ahead and try that. So you can see device must comply with your organization's compliance requirements, and because of which I'm not able to log in into my Outlook from my iPhone. Thanks for watching.